Has started. Fantastic. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again. I'm dropping my pod now out of my ear. I'm still here, and I'm with the wonderful Ian Coggin from Belton Farm in Shropshire. I was going to say Cheshire then, but you are in my beloved Shropshire, aren't you?
We are in North Shropshire at Whitchurch.
Yeah, I always think, because I used to live in Shropshire as well, now live in Norfolk, but I was a big fan of Belton Farm and the Cheshire cheeses, and I've had just such a wonderful situation and position. I keep seeing all the pictures on Instagram of the offices and the house with those amazing autumnal trees. The colours are just fantastic. I bet you love going to work, don't you?
It is a great place to go, Tracy. It really is. When you arrive there, when you arrive at Belton Farm in any season and look out of the office window and you see farming life is going on across the fields, and it's a great place no matter what the season. Great on a Friday though, like everywhere else.
Excellent.
Right. So
yeah. Finally, when you can go home and go to the pub.
No, if only.
And I love.
We have other responsibilities. So I'll make a start.
I love you've got your little.
Yes, we've.
Okay, I'm going to. So people, all our lovely, welcome to all our participants. If you want to put some questions in the Q&A box or in the chat box, I'm going to hide my camera so Ian will be highlighted, and he's going to talk to you about some amazing cheeses behind that cheeky little fox. It's almost a bit Basil Brush sitting there on your shoulder. There's some people that will not remember Basil Brush. Showing my age now.
The fox travels with us. The whole Red Fox journey has been quite exciting so far, and there's an awful lot more to come. At Belton Farm, Belton Farm is a traditional Cheshire cheesemaker in Shropshire. We're a mile from the Welsh border and about 2-3 miles from the border with Cheshire, in a real rich milk field, and that is why cheesemaking was developed in that part of the county. And the cheese, traditionally Cheshire cheese, was produced on most of the farms in that area, and the cheese would be sold at the weekly market in Whitchurch, in the market hall in Whitchurch, which is still there. And the cheese traders would they would inspect these cheese and check them for quality and buy these cheese, and most of it then would be shipped from Whitchurch up into the cities where the market was. It was all about preserving this liquid milk when there was a surplus, and that is why there were so many cheese producers in the area. And then things all changed when making cheese on the farm wasn't always just as necessary after 1945, after the end of the war. And then the Milk Marketing Board was introduced. And so the farmers, it wasn't so necessary for them to add value to the milk or save the milk by making cheese, because the Milk Marketing Board, the government, would buy the milk at an agreed price. Today at Belton Farm, we make about 7,500-8,000 tons of cheese a year. Now, this sounds a colossal amount of cheese, but in the scheme of things, Belton Farm is a family-owned and operated business that operates on the farm, just as it did when Mr. Stanley Beckett went to Belton Farm in 1922, and they were making cheese at Belton Farm and selling it to the local markets. It's just that the markets have changed. Everything was sold locally. Everything was done locally. People didn't go out of the area. And when they went to the market stall Nantwich or in Whitchurch, and they went to buy their cheese. They didn't ask for a Cheshire or a Red Fox or Stilton or whatever it would be. They had the local cheese, and they would go to the stall and say, I'll have a pound of red or a pound of white, and that would be Cheshire cheese. Invariably, everybody was eating it. And then as the retailing, over the next 50 years, retailing changed in the UK quite dramatically, and supermarkets and people travelled the country and tastes changed. And so the way that Belton Farm operates today is just the same as it was in 1922. And we are taking this milk from farms that surround Belton Farm. We travel about 20 miles, 25 miles to pick milk up every day. We collect milk from these farms every single day. The majority of the farms are within 10 miles of Belton Farm. And that milk comes into us and we turn it into these great British regional cheeses, Cheshire and coloured Cheshire and Red Leicester and Red Fox, etc. And as consumers' tastes and trends changed, you have to sort of modernise the products that are being produced. And now, a traditional Cheshire, it's a really, really important cheese to the people that enjoy it, the people that have got memories. You will always find that people that have travelled throughout the UK and now live somewhere where from where they originate from, kind of certain times of the year and special occasions, they will head to a cheese outlet. They'll go to an independent or wherever it is where they buy their cheese, and they will be looking for the cheese they had of their childhood, and sales of Cheshire and Lancashire, etc., always increase significantly at Christmas, because lots of people buy big pieces of cheese to take home and rejoin the family and kind of just rekindle those memories where families provide it for them. I have an online shop at Belton Farm. In actual fact, I think there's a discount code somewhere that you can click on to get a discount on the cheeses that we're going to talk about today. So these traditional regional cheeses, super important, played a role in extending the life of the milk. It was very much about getting the best return for that liquid milk. Now, at Belton, we produce the British regionals. We're not a large-scale cheddar producer. There's lots of people producing wonderful cheddars, but our focus is on Great British regionals. And Red Leicester, I get the detail eventually when here I am with my fox here and this behind me. But Red Fox, how did that start? How did that come about? Well, second to cheddar in the UK when it comes to consumption is Red Leicester. Red Leicester is a very important cheese. It's widely available. But it was a cheese that was sold in many supermarkets, kind of just as to have a coloured cheese on the shelf. Now at Belton Farm, you use authentic recipes, traditional recipes. What we would say is that these cheeses are true to type, true to these original recipes. Our starter cultures are bespoke, unique to Belton Farm. And the way that we make cheese at Belton Farm, as I alluded, we produce a decent volume of cheese. But let's be clear, this cheese made at Belton Farm is made in open vats. It is not a continuous factory process. We've got cheesemakers in the cheese room filling the vats, and then the curd and the whey runs down onto the cooling tables, the open vats, and the curd and the whey is then worked by hand. The cheesemakers are working every vat that we produce every day, salted by hand, and then the molds are filled by hand, individual molds. It's not a continuous system. And because we make a large number of varieties of cheese, we make all the crumbly territorials, because that's a solution for customers. We're experts making crumbly territorials because we've been making Cheshire cheese at Belton Farm for over 100 years. And so our experience on crumbly cheeses has developed into our Wensleydale cheese production and our Caerphilly cheese production. And the Caerphilly that we produce at Belton Farm, we make with Welsh milk. As I said, we are only 1 mile away from the Welsh border. And so we are able to, in our relationship with our farmers, we are able to segregate the milk, collect that milk from the Welsh farms, and we make Welsh milk Caerphilly for a customer. And it's important that we are able to adapt, and that is about the scale of Belton Farm. Yes, there's a volume, but this is a privately owned family business where everybody knows everybody. There's a real team spirit from the cheese production and our connection with our farmers. Fantastic connection with our farmers. We do an awful lot of work with our farmers. We support them. It's never easy getting up early in the morning and milking cows 7 days a week, and sometimes wondering why. And we think that the connection with our farmers is very important, and we organise events for them at Belton Farm. And they come along, and we might talk about sustainability, and might talk about nutrition, all kinds of things where we are involved with the farmers. We have a farm liaison manager, and we have Chris and Imogen on farm liaison, and they spend a lot of time with our guys, and they are very much a part of what we do at Belton Farm. And it is quite rewarding when you kind of drive around the area, and you'll see a sign at the end of the farm lane, and it will say proud supplier to Belton Farm, Great British Cheesemakers. And that is the connection with that rural agricultural community that has always been there with cheese making. We're always connected to it. We are completely reliant on each other.
We've got a question on the milk,
yeah,
Ian. So David Greenwell is asking, does it make a difference?
Oh, does what make a difference? The signal must have gone, Tracy. Hello, Tracy.
Multi-herds. Well,
Tracy, all I heard was, does it make a difference?
Does it make a difference if you use milk from a single herd as opposed to multi-herds? Which I know you're using multi-herds.
We are. Yeah, we work with about 70 different farmers, and it's actually really important. Amazing. It is really important that we work with a range of herds. So it is not all about milk producing Holstein Friesians, black and whites. We have, in the herds that supply Belton, we've got Swiss and we've got Jersey, there's Guernsey, there are the British Friesian. There is a mix of herds within our milk field, and that gives us the type of milk, the quality of milk that we want for cheese production. Everybody knows that these great cheeses start with the best quality milk, and that is why we collect the milk every single day. You know, we go past the road end of these farmers and we pick their milk up every day. We don't sit on that milk. It is just important that the milk arrives at Belton in the very best condition and of the right constituents, and the farmers are rewarded for feeding and increasing proteins and butter fats. So it's a very very good question, important point. It makes all the difference. So we started looking at what to do with Red Leicester cheese. Red Leicester cheese was selling well in the UK, but we would say that some of the products that were available were, they didn't just maybe have the flavour or the texture. We were very proud of the fact that, as I said, Red Leicester cheese made at Belton is absolutely true to type. And a Red Leicester cheese should have some really interesting characteristics, some savoury, kind of frothy, and then the creaminess as well. And it's very distinctive Red Leicester. But of course, always with an eye on consumer trends and the way that people are shopping products they're looking for. And the cheddar market, the cheddar market's 60% of the UK cheese market. There's an awful lot to go around. We look at that and we look at the flavours that were being developed that consumers were really enjoying. And we decided that we should develop Red Leicester to give us something that was absolutely unique. And we started to develop a recipe to produce this cheese. And it took, I'll be corrected, but it took about 4 years of constant development. Now, this is not a great business model. Cheesemakers all understand this. When you're developing a cheese, you know in your mind what you're aiming for. You understand where you want to get. But of course, you make a vat of cheese and you adjust the starter cultures, and the starter cultures give the cheese its distinctive characteristics, distinctive flavours. Starter cultures are the heart of the cheese. It's kind of what you get, that experience and the way that these cultures develop the flavours. And you'd make a vat of cheese and you'd look at it after, let's say 5-6 months. So no rush job. And you have a look at it and you think, I don't think that's really going to get there. And you start with quite a lot of cheese and you make different vats. So while you're developing, you are making these vats of cheese. You've got these guys in the cheese room and they're making these vats of cheese and they're getting into the swing of the different characteristics of a new cheese. 4 years later, we find we have the cheese that we're really aiming for. We've hit the spot of what we were looking for, which was Red Leicester style flavours. So you have some savoury notes and then you have some nuttiness, but then you have a little bit of kind of caramel sweetness that comes through at the end. And then the flavour lingers and lingers. And as we say, on the Fox, it has a little crunch that develops naturally in the cheese. And that is with the calcium lactate crystals is what we'll call it. And so then you have a cheese that's got some real complexity and you've been developing it over an extended period of time. And of course, the trick is to repeat it. Making vats of cheese week in, week out and making the same. The milk changes. And as the milk changes, the cheese in the vat that you're producing will change. So when the cows go out to grass in the spring, if they get lots of fill belly on lush grass, the quality of the milk changes, and that will impact on the cheese that's being made in the vat. And the skill of the cheesemakers is to work with these adjustments. Everybody wants to just go down a straight line. Everybody wants to keep it there. But of course, what you're doing is you're just steering it all the time. Every day when the guys are in there making the cheese, they're looking at the way that curd has built its acidity, how it's developed, and how it compares with what was made the day before or the vat before it. So they're always tweaking and adjusting. Cheese making is, on paper, a very straightforward process. It's an ancient process, started in the Middle East a couple of thousand years ago, and people would carry milk and they would carry it in the containers they'd use would be the stomachs of animals that they'd slaughtered for food, or etc. You'd store milk in one of those, and the enzyme that was in that stomach lining would react with the milk, and you'd have solids. The milk would turn to solids really quickly. They're just using these things to carry the liquid. And then, of course, some desperate, hungry individual decided that they would try and eat this residue that it was developing. And it wasn't bad. And that was the start of cheese making, we believe. There are other stories. Even I was not around then. But that was how it started. And we believe that is right for the right place in the world where cheese making first started. Cheese comes from Latin "che," which means ferment, and it is fermenting milk to produce this cheese, basically. Now, when the milk comes into the vat, you start with that same raw ingredient, fresh milk from all these farms that surround Belton. And when it gets into that vat, you have to make decisions about the type of cheese that you're going to produce. And we have a production plan. The guys know what they're going to produce. But once that milk goes into the vat, it could actually be any number of varieties on that day at Belton. So if we wanted to make it into a Cheshire, there would be a set amount of starter culture would be fed into the milk as the vat fills. And if we're making a red fox, there would be a different measure of starter culture. There would be some colouring, and then the coagulant, the rennet, would go in. And that is all the ingredients. That's all there is. In any vat of cheese, we have the milk, we have the rennet, and the starter culture, which is basically milk with bacteria. People making cheese at home will use live yogurt maybe, or other things, as a starter culture to develop flavours. So it is then within the skill of the cheesemaker to control and determine what type of cheese is being produced. And there, the other dimensions come in, which are heat and time. And heat and time play a big part in the type of cheese you're producing. You would, with a crumbly cheese, you wouldn't put a lot of heat on the vat as the curds and whey are separated, and the curds are cut into small pieces, and then that retains some moisture. So when the cheese is made, when you make a Cheshire, a Wensleydale, or the Caerphilly, these are cheeses that are not for keeping for a year or 8 months. These are cheeses that are sold younger. They develop the flavours quite quickly because there's a lot of starter culture, and that produces a lot of lactic acid, and that lactic acid kind of bleaches the curd and gives you that white, bright colour that you would get with a white Cheshire. And then if you want, colouring goes in. Colouring used to be used to cover up sins, and people will say that a coloured Cheshire, if they're a fan of coloured Cheshire, it tastes different to white Cheshire. Now, I have seen family arguments over this, and we would say that the annatto, natural ingredient annatto, crushed seeds from the annatto shrub, and that gives you this natural inert colouring. Annatto has no flavour. Excuse me. It has no flavour. It has no aroma. But without a doubt, as the cheese is maturing, they do mature differently, and you get slightly different flavours. So we have, just to follow that controversy on, we thought that it would be sensible when we've done red fox that maybe we should do a white fox. Now that is a white Leicester cheese. Red Leicester cheese developed red fox, and white fox, the white Leicester cheese. Now white Leicester used to be just white. It wasn't always a coloured cheese. It was just a white cheese. But what they did, cheesemakers in Leicestershire, in that part of the world, they added colouring because they wanted to differentiate Red Leicester from all the cheddars that were out there. And so they started putting colouring in, and the recipe became Red Leicester. And now everybody is completely familiar with Red Leicester, and white Leicester is kind of a little bit forgotten. We developed that recipe because we believe that we understand Leicester cheese production. We produce quite a bit of Leicester cheese at Belton Farm, and this kind of is that connection with Belton Farm and Belton House in Leicestershire. And so then, as we developed the Red Fox, at the time, obviously we didn't have a name for this cheese. We were developing a new cheese, and excuse me, as we hit the spot, found the cheese that we were looking for, and then there was quite a number of gatherings about understanding what we were going to call this cheese. and how we developed this brand. Belton Farm are cheesemakers. You know, we make different types of cheese. But for the first time, we were going to develop a brand, and Red Fox is a brand. And it was important that we understood how to work with a brand. And we had some great support from different people, brand houses and developers. And Red Fox came to the top. Red Fox, in the end, it was only ever going to be Red Fox, and that's that connection with Leicestershire. The football team are the Foxes in Leicester, I believe. And then it turns out that at Belton Farm, that on top of the stable block in the yard at Belton Farm, this lovely farm where we go to work every day, as Tracy was saying. But on top of the clock, on the roof of the stable block, there's a weather vane, and that weather vane is a Red Fox, and that Red Fox has been above Belton for a long, long time. It was there when Mr. Beckett's family came to Belton in 1922. So it's had a coat of paint. It looks a little bit more red than it used to. But it is actually, it was just meant to be. It was a wonderful connection to have this fox flying at Belton. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to talk a little bit about these cheeses. I'm just going to, I know it's difficult. When we're doing this, I have no idea if there's anybody out there. I could be talking to myself. And you're not getting any feedback and you're just talking and talking, there is a real danger.
You're not talking to yourself. You're not talking to yourself. There's lots of people lots of people watching, Ian.
I'm just in danger of waffling, Tracy. So I just wanted to be sure that there was people out there. So right, okay. So what I have here is Red Fox. Okay. So there we have the Red Fox. Now, I have some standard Red Leicester as well. And I just wanted to demonstrate this. This is standard Red Leicester. And if you open that, I think that shows how the standard Red Leicester, it opens, it has fissures, and it's quite an open texture. It's not a smooth, pasty cheese. And that texture is a real critical part in the characteristics of Red Leicester cheese. It's no good just making a hard pressed red cheese that's kind of got cheddar characteristics to call it Leicester. The flavours of Leicester are savoury, quite rich, and then a little bit of nuttiness, and it has that open texture, so it will break and crumble. And so this is what we wanted to develop with the Fox, obviously. Now, we're maintaining the characteristics of Red Leicester, as you can see there, how that crumbles, that lovely open texture. I think it looks really, really appetizing. And you have the same melting attributes that you have with a Red Leicester. Now, I talked about the crunch in Red Fox. I'm going to try and demonstrate this, but I'm not sure if this will work. You know, sat at the kitchen table with my iPad. But yeah, I think you might be able to see that on the surface of that cheese. You will see, there you go. You will see little red dots. Now we call them the measles, and that is a really good sign in Red Fox. That is the calcium lactate. It is actually tyrosine, which is a non-essential fatty acid, and it's there naturally in the cheese. And we're just using different cultures. We just kind of enhance that, and that's what gives you the crunch. And as they appear on the surface, that's when people call them calcium lactate crystals, and they go kind of white. But it's this is so true. You see, that is exactly what you want to see with Red Leicester. A lovely open texture. It will slice. You know, you can do that. Yeah, it will slice really well. This cheese that I'm working on here is almost 2 years old. It's about 20 months old. So it really has developed flavour. and you get the richness and the creaminess. I do hope that some of you have experienced it and maybe take up the offer.
We've got quite a few people in the chat, Ian, saying beautiful from Peter Rosenberg. Ian McQuillan is saying, bought some this afternoon to remind myself how good it is. And you are making our mouth water. It is like, I'm so hungry now.
Tracy, yeah, it's a great thrill. This is enjoy when people are genuinely interested in what we are doing. We go to work every day. We make this cheese, but we make it with Belton. We make it with such a commitment. All this time to develop Fox, and for this brand to be kind of the hero brand of Belton Farm, and when people recognise that, I can't tell you, when you see it when you go into a shop and you see your product there and people are buying it, it's a wonderful feeling. So I do appreciate that feedback. So now I'm just going to show you the white Fox. So here we go. Makes
it all worthwhile, doesn't it?
A pack of white Fox.
Makes it all worthwhile. So tell us about white Fox. I'm intrigued to know about the differences.
It really does. It's great. So here we are with the white Fox, and again, you can see it's got that lovely open, friable texture that Red Leicester should have. But of course, you can't see the crystals. Forgive me. You can't see the crystals in white Fox because of the colour. You don't get the measles developing in the white Fox. I've got red Fox all over it, but you can see. But what you do get is that Leicester open texture, and that is absolutely how it should be. And when you're developing this cheese, when you're producing these things, you sit down in a room and taste them. But if they've not got the right texture, if they've not got the right attributes, if they don't keep or whatever it may be, if they don't deliver at every level, you've not got it right. And on Red Fox, such a long process. And that brings me on to the next development of Fox. I was asked a question. We export Red Fox. We've been very fortunate to have some real success with exporting Red Fox into different countries across the globe. And again, that's all. It's very exciting. And we were asked if we could develop a smoked Red Fox. Now, smoked cheese divides everybody. If you have a really nice piece of cheese, whatever that may be, and you put a smoked flavour on it, or you naturally smoke it, are you just taking that cheese, smoking it? Is it bringing anything to it? And for us, with Fox, because we are very protective of the Fox brand, and everything that we do with Belton Farm Fox family has to stand on its own. It has to bring something to it. And so we did some trials with smoking, and we were really quite surprised at what happened. It isn't just a question of smoking the cheese and it hooks that smoked flavour onto it. This cheese is naturally smoked, with a firm that just smoke cheese. They don't do anything else, and it's smoked over oak chippings, and it's smoked for 8 to 10 hours typically. It varies, but when you try this cheese, this smoked cheese, it brings another dimension. It brings another dimension to the flavour, the characteristics of the cheese, and it has a richness and a kind of a, we try to think of language to describe this, as to what the flavour is, how it develops. And for me, it's more about kind of a feeling that you get from it, when you're experiencing this. And so we kind of say that you get that campfire smoke, and that is how I feel about it. And it smells autumnal. I will, time of year. I've got conkers all over the table here that I collected from Belton for my grandchildren. It's very much that time of year. And the smoked Fox is so it's got the sweetness, it's got the mellow fox flavors, and then it's got this wonderful smoky dimension that's absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So I think what I need to do, when I'm trying these cheese, you know, I'll talk about them. But I think what I need is I need an independent taster, Claire. And it just so happened this could go anywhere. But I just thought, you know, it would be nice if obviously a man that's a real fan of you know, Belton Farm cheese maybe got involved. Hi Liam, how are you? Are you?
Hello, Liam.
You had a good day at school?
Yeah.
And would you like to try some cheese?
Yes, please.
Would you? Right. Okay. So.
Oh, which is your favourite, Liam?
Oh well, we're gonna. I think all of them.
All of them. Who told you to say that?
Is that nice?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm really jealous. I want some, please. Can you put some through the camera to me?
How do you like your cheese? Do you eat it in a sandwich? In a sandwich, yeah. And what do you eat it with? Stand up. You're disappearing. With what?
Ham.
Ham. Cheese and ham. You like cheese and ham? Yeah. How else do you have cheese?
Wraps.
In wraps. Wraps. That sounds exciting. Do you want to try some more cheese? And then what I need to know is if you have a favourite. So this is smoked red fox. Now smoked cheese and children. This could be challenging. Would like to try that, Liam?
Yes, please.
Yeah, good boy. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a question. We've got a question about the smoke. Tell us about the smoking process. How does that work with the smoked cheese?
Of course. So the cheese is okay. The cheese is cut into we cut it into loaves. So we cut it into twice as long as that we cut it into, and then it goes to the smokery. It's put on racks and it's cold smoked. So there is a fire lit in a chamber next door to the smoking chamber, and the oak chippings burn away, and then the smoke from those oak chippings is blown into the chilled space where the cheese is sat, and it does that for about between 8 and 10 hours.
Yeah.
And the cheese slowly takes on the flavour of the smoke, and it's an ancient process. Smoked food has been around as long as cheese. It was about preserving when food was plentiful. Okay, Liam, thank you. You can go back to bed. Say bye-bye. Oh, you want to try that one as well? Oh, okay. Oh, you want to try them all? Good boy. There you go. Right.
That's great. I mean, Liam, it looks like Liam really liked the smoked. We've got a question for you, Liam. Has the fox sitting next to your granddad, has the fox got a special name? Is he called Basil?
No, it's a good question. No, Liam hadn't met the fox.
More interested in the cheese, aren't you, Liam, mate? I don't blame you.
Good boy. Right, okay.
You
are.
Bye.
Bye, Liam. You're a little angel. Lovely to meet you. Sorry, I'm saying bye. Lovely to meet you. Bless his heart. He's gorgeous.
He is, and he adores cheese.
Amazing. Well, he has no choice. I'm going to stop my video so you get all the signal.
We have, we have preconceived ideas about people's taste in cheese. Claire, can you just close that door? Sorry. We have these preconceived ideas about what children and what adults like, and I'm just sitting there, Liam. He's tried all of those, and he wanted to try all of those. And a smoked red fox, a cheese that's matured for an extended period. It's a cheese that's got some really good flavors, some real character, and the smokiness, and he enjoys it. You know, he doesn't need to have, a branded child-focused cheese to have his dairy intake. You know, the good stuff is just as good for the children.
Yeah,
So,
it's
do forgive me.
fantastic. And affordable too.
Absolutely.
I've got a couple of questions for you, Ian, before we finish.
Yeah.
We've got one from Ian. How is Fox different from Red Leicester?
Okay. Yeah. So Red Fox, the recipe is different. The way that we make Red Fox, and the real key is the different starter cultures that we use.
Yeah.
And the starter cultures, the different cultures that we use to make Red Fox, our dairy manager, Andy Rusko-Wyke, he knows the cultures we use. And the guys that are making the cheese, they understand the cultures that we use, what's going into a bat fox. But other than that, it is really kept under wraps, that recipe, because the different starter cultures will develop different flavours from the milk. When you put the starter culture in, you've got those good bacteria. Right? These are good bacteria that are feeding on the sugars in the milk and producing lactic acid, lactose, sugars. And so it is that balance of those different bacterias that gives us specific flavours. So the make of Red Leicester, the way that the milk goes in the vat and the way that it is handled and salted, Red Leicester and Red Fox are very similar, very similar. And that's why, you know, it is a Red Leicester. Red Fox is a Red Leicester, but it's a Red Leicester with a very different flavour.
Type of Red Leicester.
Yeah.
It's probably matured a bit long.
And we mature it, you know, we do mature. We mature this vintage Red Fox. You know, that is made in a traditional round cheese, 12.5 kilo round cheese. And that will mature for 18 months to 2 years. It develops its flavour very slowly, but you can't rush that. You can't speed that up. And that, you know, it's deliberate. You take a bit more moisture out and the cheese matures and develops some real characteristics to it.
There's another question around, another question around that is, do you smoke the smoked one? Is it smoked before or after maturation? I would have said after maturation, but
yes. What we do, in actual fact, what we do, the cheese is matured. We select the cheese at the right age for going smoking. Once the cheese has been smoked, it's put into a pouch, and then we would sit on that cheese for another couple of months after it's been smoked to allow the smoke flavour to
so it's a combo. But it's near the end of its maturation.
Yeah, absolutely, and we, you know, I said the brand, having a brand for a cheesemaker, having a brand is, you know, it's really important that you understand how people relate to that brand. People relate to all kinds of brands, and we know that with the Fox brand, people that relate to the Fox brand, they are looking for consistency and characteristics, and so it's so important that everything we do is aligned to that. We've got some great ideas coming along for Fox. We have got some development which I am not going to tell anybody about, but we have got some great ideas, and it's a long time in the making. But by the time these things come to the market,
we can share those ideas next year at the Big Cheese Weekend.
Yeah, next year next year will be great. Yeah. Lovely. Okay, I think I've said probably too much on
we've had a fantastic person from the US, from Los Angeles. Peter Rosenberg is saying it's breakfast their time there. It's 9:30 a.m. and it's his favorite breakfast cheese. So breakfast of champions. So that's a nice international.
Tracy.
And then we've got Jenny, the lovely Jenny DeProse also is saying children have brilliant taste buds if they try the real cheese, because their taste buds are, you know, fresh, aren't they? Unlike ours, which are old and have been hammered for a few years.
You know, yeah. When you have people from, you know, another country saying that we like what you're doing, yeah, I can't ask for a lot more if I'm absolutely honest, Tracy. you know, all the time that I've been in cheese. When we make these several tons of cheese that we make, excuse me, and we make these little packs. We make pre-packs because that's how people want to buy the cheese. So we make pre-packs. Every piece of that, you've just seen Liam having a little bit of that. Every piece of this ends up somebody's eating it. And that is a big responsibility for cheesemakers. Every piece of this is an experience, and we want that to be a brilliant experience. It's so important. We're driven by it.
Yeah. And you've had 100 years practice at it, so that's fantastic. Ian, just one last question. Ian is asking, do you vacuum pack everything you make, or do you ever cloth wrap? And I think you vacuum pack most of it, don't
yes,
you?
we do. We do vacuum pack. We make traditional round cheeses, and but we do vacuum pack. Yeah. You know, the guys that are doing cloth bound, you know, they bring another dimension. I completely get it. Bring another dimension. But you know, one of the challenges we have, you know, sometimes people don't always understand it, and so that is why you know, we make these trad rounds, but they go into a bag, and they're robust, and it is a great way to keep them, quite frankly. We do some waxing. We do some direct waxing. More often than not, that's for export. Yeah. But we do some.
You're making a cheese that you know can be eaten as an everyday cheese in the kids' lunch boxes, in the sandwiches at that price point, and that's the great thing. We're going to have to finish there, but I do want to mention you've got an offer, haven't you? A Big Cheese Weekender offer, which is on our website, on the bigcheeseweekender.com. Go to offers, and you can see the offer there, which I'm very naughty because I can't remember what it was, but I think it's off buying cheeses off your website, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, online shop. Yeah, perfect.
Online shop. So go and visit the offers, and I think I'm going straight there because I'm just now starving hungry. But you can buy Red Fox in which supermarkets as well?
Yeah, you can buy Red Fox in most of the supermarkets on deli counters or pre-pack. Some of it is in a supermarket top tier private label, but there's you'll find brand and deli counter across Waitrose, Tesco, Asda, Morrison's, Aldi.
Fantastic. Well done, you. What a fun! It's just you know, that's brilliant because it's an amazing business, an independent business supporting 82 farmers who are making the milk for this cheese. So thank you so much, Ian. It's been really informative and amazing. Absolutely gorgeous. He's made my day.
You're easily pleased, Tracy, but it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Nice to know that that I've not been on my own out there. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
No, and have a great Big Cheese Weekender. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.